Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and welcome to a very special NerdTube event. We are here tonight interviewing Jonathan Lane and the Avalon Universe crew about the Showrunner Awards, which Avalon Universe won a fair number of awards at that show. And Mr. Lane was the organizer of the awards over at Fan Film Factor. So, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. How are you doing, Mr. Lane?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, I'm great. Little coffee, though. So, expect a lot of that today. I might have had COVID a couple of weeks ago. Not sure.
Well, we're very glad you're on the mend. And how are you, Josh?
Doing fine.
I'm doing pretty good. Very, very busy, but a little overwhelmed, but doing very well.
A little overwhelmed. I know what his schedule is like. He's a lot overwhelmed.
I'll get through it.
And, of course, I am joined tonight by Cousin Cheeto. How are you, sir?
I am here with the spreadsheets.
He always with the spreadsheets. You've got the stats, the low down and dirty about these wins. So why don't you hit the audience with that?
So before we get started, first off, congratulations, Josh and the Avalon Universe crew on the huge victories you took in the Showrunner Awards this year. Well, the Star Trek Fan Film Showrunner Awards is the full name. Jonathan, of course, thank you for
Star Trek Fan Film Showrunner Awards. There you
go. Jonathan, thank you so much for also being here so we can kind of dive into kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. You can add some here and there, whatever you're willing to share that goes into which I'm sure could be a ton or not as much. It depends on how not promiscuous, how shady you want to be with the behind the scenes details.
Promiscuous. Don't tell my wife. Okay.
We do have some people in the chat. Terry Stranford, thank you very much for joining us here. Hello. Skip Morris. Hello,
hey,
also. H. Keith of Hamilton VFX, also welcome.
Awesome VFX guy.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here. We welcome you guys. Okay, so my thing. So obviously the Showrunner Awards happened on Star Trek Day this year on September 8th. And as I said before, the Avalon Universe kind of did a bang up job. So three Avalon Universes were involved in the awards this year, which was Knights of the Void, Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs, and the Lost Starship. So just some stats for you guys out there that I was kind of just throwing together here, between yesterday and today. So out of 23 categories, 19 had at least one Avalon fan film involved. 82.6% of every category had at least one Avalon film involved in it.
Well, keep in mind, let's remind people for the Showrunner Awards, each category has three winners. They have an Admiral tier, which is like sort of first place, a Captain tier and second place, and then a Commander tier, which is third place. And then occasionally we had some ties or whatever. So, there were a lot of winners that were not necessarily Avalon, but if you look through the awards, it's like, there's Avalon again. There's Crisis.
Well, and that goes into my next statistic, which out of 83 awards that were handed out, so a total, because you were saying there were tiers, so out of 83 of those awards, Avalon Universe took home 36. So they took home 20 Admiral tier, 11 Captain tier, and 5 Commander tier. The fun fact is that somehow while I was pulling the thumbnail together, I missed like 4 or 5 awards for Avalon. Because if you go and you count up all the little squares that I put on there, that are actually the awards, by the way. I downloaded each one of them and put them on there. So if you zoom in really close, you can see what those awards are. But that's 43.3% of the awards. That's over almost half of the awards go to Avalon fan films in some fashion.
But keep in mind that is 3 fan films, which is we had I think we had 27 submissions. So at that point, you're talking about 1/9 of the submissions. And granted, it's still a little bit ridiculous, but at the same point in time, and most of them were Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. But the fact is, Crisis was an amazing fan film. I mean, it was a collaboration between, I think, no less than maybe a dozen different fan filmmakers in some way, showrunners and such. It had incredible visual effects, a great script that I helped write a little bit, but for the most part, it was Josh. Fantastic acting performances, wonderful visual effects that Samuel Cockings just knocked it out of the park with. And did Keith Hamilton do some stuff for that?
Yes, he did. He did the Love Ship Excalibur.
He did. Yeah, the Love Ship Excalibur, the LSD Love Ship Designation Excalibur, and then it was just it was well edited. It was well paced. The music. I mean, there was nothing wrong with that fan film, and for me, it was almost a validation of the Showrunner Awards that Crisis did as well as it did. Like, if Crisis had done worse and wasn't really represented, I would kind of worry that maybe the judges were purposely voting against it because they thought it was some kind of a powerhouse and they didn't want it to win, which was not the case. And it's just it's a great fan film, and I think next year, I'm just going to make this prediction now, not really knowing, but I have a feeling that Farragut Forward, which is supposed to come out in the next month or so, is going to take just as many, if not more, of the categories. I mean, everything from best costuming and hair and makeup to best visual effects, best special effects, best music, actors, and editing, and just sometimes sometimes you have a 500-pound gorilla, and that's one of the reasons why the window for eligibility of the Showrunner Awards is not just 1 year. This year it's 5 years. We're going to decrease that to 3 years. Basically, if you didn't win really significantly this year and you wanted to compete again next year, you're welcome to do that. Granted, you're not going to beat Farragut Forward probably, but if you should, because Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs can't go. I mean, you could try to get like whatever award you didn't win, but I don't think you had one of those. But you can't win twice. That's one of our rules. You can't win twice in the same category. Anyway, that's some of the words that you wanted me to share with you.
No, I think
it's important to note too that 16 of those that were for the Lost Starship are shared with Neutral Zone Studios for
That
Tales from the Neutral Zone.
Okay,
but
go
ahead. Sorry.
I'm not even halfway through my stat list yet, so I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say that the other thing is, I always wanted the Showrunner Awards to be as inclusive as possible, and as I said, we have 3 winners per category, and occasionally more than that if we have ties. So I always knew that there were going to be the 500-pound Mugatus out there that were going to take a lot of awards. So that's why we decided initially to create 3 different tiers. So, there were, of those 27 fan films that were submitted, 24 of them won at least one award. And I think 16 of them won at least 2 or more awards. So, obviously you had Lost Starship and Crisis, getting a huge chunk of them, but other people got to have fun too.
But as I said before, the 43.3% of the awards, Knights of the Void won 5 awards. The Lost Starship won 13, unless I missed one, but I was kind of counting off the website. And Crisis won 18, so that does total 36. So at least I know that's right. So just 1 or 2 more little things here is not apparently Avalon swept the Best Actor award. If you look, Tyler Dunivan won the Admiral tier for Knights of the Void as the best actor. Warren Hawk for Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs, and Jeff Johnson on The Lost Starship. So the 3, the Admiral, Captain, and Commander tiers were all swept by Avalon Universe Films, or Avalon Universe in conjunction with their I'm losing
Neutral
the
Zone Studios.
Neutral Zone Studios. So
Neutral Zone Studios.
Also they almost swept the Best Scene award. They just tied with the Commander rank with Fallen Heroes and Knights of the Void. So that again, another a Best Scene you know, and they almost swept that whole thing. I didn't actually put down who won what, but I know that the Commander tier was tied with Fallen Heroes and Knights of the Void. And then lastly, Josh, we're going to transition to you a little bit, and we're going to, out of all of the awards, that there were 60 awards that had people mentioned in them. So not just awards about the fan films, but actually had names on them. And there's only, you tied with one person and only one other person beat you out. So that's saying a lot. I mean, you were taking home a lot of awards. So with Glenn Wolfe won the most with 6, but you tied with Dan Reynolds with 5. You know, and then Sam Cockings brought home 4,
That's
which
great.
I think he deserves it because all of his are visual effects, and Sam Cockings has fantastic visual effects. So, Josh, how do you feel? I mean, you know, I'm not trying to suck up to you or anything, but I mean, how do you feel, man? I mean, this an amazing victory and validation for you and the Avalon Universe channel, studio, production team, everything. Thoughts?
It didn't go the way that I thought it would. Honestly, my expectation is that the Lost Starship was going to be the dominant film. I thought Crisis would win things, but I expected the Lost Starship to be the dominant film. It had just a great coalescence of talent. You know, you had Ralph Miller, who did all of the sound design for Star Trek Continues. You had some great acting. Brian Peterson wrote a great script, just a fantastic script. And then, of course, you can't ignore the Mogatu on that one, which was that it was directed by Vic. And now I will say, you know, whatever your opinion of Vic is, he's a damn good filmmaker. And I got to spend 4 days on set with him, you know, watching what he did, and I took away a lot of it. In fact, I used some of his tricks because we filmed the Lost Starship before we filmed the Neutral Zone Crisis. And so, you know, when we were doing Lost Starship, Vic shared all these tricks of the sets. He's like, well, this wall comes off, or there's a camera port here. And then I went and I utilized all those things. You know, for one, I've always wanted that, you know, animated series Spock scanner shot where you look like you're right on top of the Spock scanner. And I could never figure out how to do that. I was like, maybe I can boom my phone or something. He's like, over here, you can just take the panel off. So, you know, I was able to do that. But, you know, I didn't expect the result that we got. And I woke up Sunday morning to a flurry of messages, especially from my friends Benjamin Schultz and Heiko Theus, who are with Laurelie in Germany. So they were already awake. They were awake a lot earlier than I was. And so they were messaging me like, congratulations. Oh my gosh, all these awards. Glenn Wolfe's calling me. And I'm like, well, wait, hold on. And I go look at this. And again, I expected to do well, but I opened up my phone and I looked at Jonathan's email and I was going through all of this and I thought, this is like running up the score on a video game.
By the way, quick interruption. Every winning fan film got its own email. So Josh not only got for Avalon, but he also got for Knights of the Void. You know, he received 2 different emails. So you got a lot from me. And then of course, once you open that email, then you go into the everybody had their own little Google Drive folder with all of their certificates in it, and I know exactly what yours look like because you go into that folder and there's just it just right down.
But then you're going through them, you're swiping through them and looking at them and seeing how many you won. You know, like there was one time when I was playing like NCAA football and I was the Arkansas Razorbacks and I was going up against like Mississippi State and I had the ball on the 1 yard line. And so what I did was I took a knee 4 times and turned it over. And then I forced a safety, which then that gets you 2 points. Then I ran the safety punt back for a touchdown. Then I went for 2. And I got 10 points, you know, with almost no time off the clock. And the commentators were like, these guys are just trying to run up the score and embarrass them. And so, like, I looked at that and I thought, like, I was embarrassed. I was like, man, it looks like I'm just like running up the score. And there's that old saying in football where you have to act like you've been there before. And so what I want to say is there were a lot of wonderful fan films that came out last year, this past year, in this eligibility window. It wasn't my intention to like run away with it on anybody. I just went out there and made the film that I wanted to make for 5 years. And yes, it's validating. It's wonderful, not just because of what it took to make that film, but what it took just to get to the first day of rolling camera, because that film fought through a lot of adversity to get made. So this is, yes, it's very, very wonderful. It's really kind of hard to process. One thing that I'm specifically proud of, and I think that deserves a lot of attention, and he'll get his chance to talk about it, is Tyler winning Best Actor. And there's no need to get into the weeds of it, but Tyler's put up with a lot of BS over the last 6 years. He's put up with a lot of BS. He really has. And he's been extremely patient, extremely forgiving. He played second tier to Warren Hawk for a couple of years and winning. He's taken the back seat and let a lot of the women actors get the spotlight a lot of times. He's been very gracious, and it's time for him to soak that in. So, and then also we're going to have a lot of great, as Jonathan mentioned, a lot of great films coming up. I tend to think that once the Laurel guys get eligible, that their films are going to be running away with it. You got Farragut Forward coming. You got Constar the motion picture. You've got a lot of stuff coming from Trek Shorts. So I think that what so many different people making fan films shows is that people love Star Trek, and they want more of it, and they want to be a part of it. We've started shooting another Federation Files. Dan Reynolds, who it was a thrill that I saw him win so many awards, because he deserved it, and he's deserved it for forever. So to see him win big was really exciting for me. I almost cared about that more than what I won. He's got a script.
Can I tell a funny story? So Glenn Wolfe and Dan Reynolds are the co-owners of Warp 66 Studios. And the Federation Files, they kind of alternate. Some of them Glenn writes and directs, some of them Dan writes and directs. Sometimes Dan writes it and Glenn directs it, and vice versa. But anyway, there's a lot of mix and matching going on. Very seldom do they actually compete directly against each other. And it wasn't until I started counting the votes from the judges in the Best Director category that I realized that Dan and Glenn were going up against each other directly. One of the fan films Glenn directed, one of the fan films Dan directed. And so, I wait for all the ballots to come in, and then I spend a couple of weeks, pretty much just doing the math and putting it into the spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. So,
spreadsheets.
It's like you wouldn't believe. Every category has its own spreadsheet, and because I have to add up, the judges. Every judge chooses their top 5, preferences. So their top vote gets 10 points. Their second vote gets 7, then 5, then 3, then 1.
Hey, Mage, what does that sound like?
What does it sound like?
That sounds like some of our Final Fantasy lists we've done.
That's how I do. That's how I do our like top 10s or top 5s or whatever. That exact same way.
It really kind of works, and you see, kind of early on, there's certain fan films or people end up, getting a bunch of 10s and 7s. Like, oh, okay, this person's probably going to win first place or second place or whatever. And every judge, you have to go through all 10 or 12 judges. So all these are, categories are being filled in. The slots are being filled in. And as the slots are being filled in, I noticed that there were a lot of, obviously Vic was getting, most of the 10s and whatever, but I noticed there were a lot of 5s and 7s going to Glenn and to Dan. And I was like, I wonder who's going to win. When one of the two of them gets the second place and one of the two of them gets a third place. And at the very end of everything, I was just like, okay, this is gonna be neck and neck. This is gonna be neck and neck. They tied. The two of them actually tied. It's like, okay, well, I guess you're buying each other dinner then, because. And then there was another category where they were also going up against each other, which was best costuming, and they tied again. And it's just it's crazy because these are literally 12 different judges in a whole bunch of different states who are all giving me their selections over a 2-month period. They're not working with each other. They're not really talking to each other about this stuff. And the scores are 10s and 7s and 5s and 3s and 1s or whatever. And that somehow at the very, very end, we get some ties. And in this case, it was just absolutely hilarious that, the two categories where Glenn and Dan were going up directly against each other, they tied both times. So I thought that was just hilarious. Anyway,
Well,
go ahead, Josh.
if you're done with your Radio Free Mormon side quest there. Anyway, but he brought up something that, I wanted to touch on there, is that the most meaningful part of this to me is that this was a decision that was made by the other fan filmmakers, our peers, our friends, and they are our friends. We are friends. And so the other fan film producers, the other fan filmmakers did this. They did it secret ballot. And one thing that he didn't mention, it isn't just that the fan film producers themselves are voting as a panel of judges. The fan filmmakers and the panel of judges voted on what the rules of the contest would be and how everything would be carried out. Jonathan was completely transparent with everyone who participated. We all got involved in a chat group. We proposed, this is how things would be submitted. This would be how things are going to be voted on. So everybody knew what was going on. So to be given this result from an objective panel of my own peers is extremely meaningful to me. And all I can say to all of you is thank you. This is not a normal thing in filmmaking. It isn't. Filmmaking can be very competitive. Art can be surprisingly very competitive. So for all of us to have come together the way that we have, and to support each other in a contest like this, because I voted in this and I voted for my peers. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad to have this. I'm overwhelmed by it. Like I said, I felt embarrassed at first, and then it was, again, it was Heiko and it was Ben, who are filmmakers that I immensely respect, that said, hey, take the win. And so I'm going to take the win and just add on top of it. We won Best Star Trek Fan Film in the Director's Choice Awards. And we won Fan Film of the Year in the Golden Glasses. And so in baseball, 3 is a sweep. And so I would say that Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs has, swept the Fan Film Awards arena, or the ones that are objective anyway. So, with a process like that, I think you see the other fan filmmakers very happy. Steve Harris, Dan Reynolds, Glenn Wolfe, Brian W. Peterson, just to name a few.
Sam Cocking,
Sam Cocking. You listen, the sound of people complaining about the Showrunner Awards is the sound of silence. Just had to throw that out there.
All right, Mage, you got any questions for our guests?
Yes, I'd like to start with Mr. Lane. I want to thank you for doing this. Yes, sir. What inspired you to get the awards show together, to start the Showrunner Awards? Because I think it's a lovely thing. I think it's a great idea, and just what inspired you to do it? And could you explain to our audience a little bit more about the behind the scenes of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very funny story. This was January of 2021. Was it 2021? Let's see. January 2022, because this is our third year. So it's January 2022, And at that point, the only competition was for Star Trek fan films was the annual Bijo Awards, which were organized by Eric L. Watts, who was the runner of the Treklanta convention. And they would give the awards out at Treklanta, and this lasted, I think they started in like 2015 or whatever, so it was about 6 or 7 years. And then Eric fell on some hard times. Treklanta had to be canceled during COVID, so a lot of revenue was lost, and usually it was the revenue from one year that financed the next year. So the the Bijo Awards had sort of been on hiatus for a couple of years. And it was just after New Year's, and I had just done my year in review blog. And I thought to myself, we could do a fan film award show through Fan Film Factor. I mean, it almost seems like, if anybody should be doing it, it should be Fan Film Factor. I obviously need some help doing it. I get a panel of judges or whatever, but, why not try to launch this? So I reached out to a number of showrunners, because my idea was that it would be the Showrunner Awards and that the panel would be a bunch of showrunners. And in the case of Eric Watts, he had a panel of people who had worked professionally in either Star Trek or sci-fi as either authors or filmmakers or whatever. But I sort of felt like if Star Trek fan filmmakers were doing this, they'd have a really good idea of what was involved. And no sooner had I tapped Glenn Wolfe and Dan Reynolds, as a matter of fact, on the shoulder, that they said, we're actually planning on launching a fan film contest as well. We're going to call it the Director's Choice Awards, and the directors of the submitted fan films are going to be our judges. And the first thing I said to them is like, well, okay, well, then you guys do it. I don't want to steal your thunder. We don't need multiple award shows. If you're going to be doing it, then go ahead and do it. And they were like, no, the more the merrier. You do it too. And we discussed some of the things that they had in mind. Obviously, the fact that the judges were going to be directors versus showrunners, that was a difference. But there were different categories they had in mind. They were only going to have 2 winners per category. Theirs was only going to be open to releases within the previous year. I figured I would open it up to 5 years. So we sort of tried to do as much different as we could. And we also wanted to make sure the timing didn't step on each other's toes. So their idea was to open it up for submissions in January and February, and then announce the winners on Star Trek Day in April. So my thought was, okay, I will come by on April 15th after the Director's Choice Awards are done. I'll have my month and a half window until the end of May to submit, and then give my judges 2 months, then make my announcement on Star Trek. And so that's really how the showrunners started, and way more work than I thought it was going to be, but very rewarding. And I just like the fact that it really is all about the fan filmmakers. I don't do a lot to hype the Showrunner Awards. The only time I hype them is during the month and a half where it's time to submit. Don't forget to submit to the Showrunner Awards. You've got 3 weeks left, or you've got 2 weeks left, or 5 days left, and then I pretty much go radio silent until to announce them. There's no reason to have a countdown of these things are coming in 167 days, they're coming in 87 days, they're coming in 33 days or whatever. Just let it happen. And I don't remember a ton of the response is great. And then for like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, once the judges, start taking over, and I'm very quietly nag them because they have about 2 months to get me their awards. That it's more of their ballots. It's more of a biting my fingernails, just waiting for those ballots to come in. So there's no reason to tell the whole world what's going on.
Well, I think the point. Lock myself. I think the point Jonathan's trying to make is that the Showrunner Awards emphasize the producers and the fan filmmakers themselves, not the award show.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
a
it's
celebration.
just there's no reason. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to celebrate ourselves. There's no reason to celebrate the Showrunner Awards. You know, it's all about the people who are getting the awards. You know, so like I said, for 3 or 4 days on Facebook, you see all those certificates that pop up, and then everything is quiet again until the next year.
Yeah, over here on our program, we do our own like award show, but it's not. We do have a fan film award. We do the Golden Glasses, and we do have a Best Fan Film of the Year award that we reviewed. And as Josh said, or like Crisis on Infinite Excalibur's won that won that award by a landslide this year with a lot of the other fan films. But we over here when we review fan films, we do multiple genres, whereas yours is just focused on Star Trek, and there's so much there in the Star Trek fan film community.
Yes.
It's hard to keep up with. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep up with all the fan films that come out. So and it's got to be just
now. Somebody saw the. I was going to say I did a screen cap the other day of my browser to send to somebody, and they said, you have way too many tabs open, because I can just see like right now about maybe 30 tabs just now here, and like half of them are videos. And they are videos of Star Trek fan films that, I'm in various stages of watching, or like, okay, I need to watch this at some point. And I just sort of go down, through the tabs and make sure that I watch them. And of course, once I watch them, I need to leave the tab up until potentially I interview the person, so I, have access to that. But it's crazy. And by the way, another difference between the Director's Choice Awards and the Showrunner Awards is that mine were focused entirely, exclusively on Star Trek fan films, whereas Dan and Glenn decided they wanted to do all fan films, so they opened up to genres like, superheroes and Harry Potter and Star Wars and whatever else. So, vive la différence.
Mm-hmm.
Both have different flavors and different personalities, and they do a wonderful job. They do up a production and stuff, and it always looks real nice. And it's just a matter of attitude, honestly. Glenn and Dan are filmmakers themselves, and so they understand what filmmakers go through to create these projects. And so they have a true intent to honor fan filmmakers and honor their peers, and to just take a moment to say, hey, dadgum, we went through a lot to get this stuff made. And Jonathan's done that himself. Jonathan probably went through he went to hell and back to make his fan film, that's for sure. And so he has respect for the process now. So it's just about us lifting each other up and celebrating the time and the effort that goes into doing this. And when you feel like the community's got your back, it makes it a whole lot easier to keep going and go to hell and back to make these fan films sometimes.
Yeah. I just have one quick question for Josh. What was the most surprising award you either got Admiralty on, or it got a lot higher than you thought, but the one that really shocked you where you're like, wow, I did not expect that one, or I didn't expect to get that high in that one?
Well, there were two of them. This is first was winning best sound design. Now I've won that before, but I mean, I was going up against Ralph Miller. And if you don't know who Ralph Miller is, watch Star Trek Continues. He's brilliant. He is one of the most talented sound designers ever in fan films. He knows what he's doing. And part of the quality of Star Trek Continues that people probably don't get is the quality of the sound on those productions. It just has this smooth sound to it. Even the dialogue has a very distinct sound to it. So in The Lost Starship, to me, when I was watching it, sounded like Star Trek Continues. I was like, wow, this sounds like Star Trek Continues. So to win for that category was a shock, and it was flattering. And then to win Best Director, going side by side, going up against Vic, that was not something I expected. And I talked to him about it, and he was very, very sweet and very gracious about it. So that was nice. It was very nice.
Well, I want to say that as directors go, directing is one of the hardest jobs on any film project, because you really have to know everybody else's job, not because you're doing it, but because you need to make sure that they are doing it the way it needs to be done. So it's sort of like driving a car, but rather than kind of ignoring everything, you're literally looking at everything that's going on. You're looking at your side view and your rear view, and you're looking at your gear shift, and you're looking at your radio, and you're looking at the kids in the back seat. You're looking at and you have to look at it all at the same time. And you cannot turn off your brain, because Lord knows what will happen when you're not paying attention. And of course, you have to direct. So I've seen a lot of directors now, doing their stuff, and Josh, you're good at this stuff. You're really good at this stuff. And sometimes Josh, forgets certain things. The funny thing about the Lost Starship is that somebody who had a commander's rank was wearing lieutenant's braids, and Josh had to pay for that in post by putting in a second.
Oh, that was Death of War. Yeah.
Oh no, that was Death of War, which will be next year actually. But yeah, and so every so often, spoiler alert. But
it wasn't in that case. It wasn't so much that I neglected it or didn't see it, but by the time we noticed it, we couldn't do anything about it because our costumer had left. So we just had to find a workaround. But it's like, yeah, I mean, the only thing that I'll say is I think that what makes me unique is that I just never stop. And I wear a lot of different hats on set, and I do a lot of different things. Now, that can also be to my detriment at times.
You might lose your hair.
Yeah, well, I at least embrace who I am in that regard. But it's one of those things to where, yeah, you're worrying about every detail. Sometimes you miss things, or you could have done something better if you'd had somebody to help you out with it. And what I will say is how this hard work and dedication is starting to pay off is I am starting to get picked up on projects where I'll be able to direct and have that kind of support. I can't talk about those yet, but I've got some projects coming up where I'm going to have the support of a much bigger team to help me out. And I'm really excited about that.
Even just having a first assistant, I was going to say, just even having a first assistant director, I noticed that was on Interlude, we had one. And it was an amazing, to watch that person keep track of everything, keeping everything on schedule. And I know that a lot of fan filmmakers don't have that luxury of having an assistant director. But it's amazing how much of the onus it takes off of their shoulders to just have somebody worrying about crossing all those I's and dotting all those T's.
And I made him get one for Interlude, by the way. Like I kind of backed him into a corner and said, no, this is what we're going to do.
Yep. And then I had a recommendation of the person who had been first AD on Axanar, who was supposed to do it, and then he pulled out at the last minute. And then, but fortunately, he was able to recommend a friend of his, so we ended up with a really good first AD.
Awesome. Mage, do you have any other questions for Josh? Maybe we can kind of turn it over to either Neil or Tyler.
I was about to ask for one of them, actually. Speak to Mr. Best Actor next, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just say again to the community, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting us, not just with awards, but to get us to this point by supporting us financially with our crowdfunding that we've done in the past, supporting us by watching our films, and then so many of you that supported us by showing up on set and helping us out. A lot of the people that are in this chat, a Terry Stanford, a Ruth McCartney, a Skip Morris, and we could do this all day. But, you know, a lot of people helped to get us here. It wasn't just a few of us. It wasn't just me. It was a lot of people who worked very hard to get us here. So with that, I'll go get Mr. Dunivan for you.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Josh. Congratulations again, sir. Do we have anything in chat we could pull up while we wait for the train? Oh,
he's
down.
Mr.
Speedy
Actor
Gonzalez
in the
here.
Bank is here.
Hello.
How's it going, fellas?
It's going great. Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us so much. It's been a couple of months. I guess 4th of July was the last time I did a thing with you guys. We were talking about, we're reviewing Prodigy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, we
and
definitely
here we are
love having
again.
you on for anything with Star Trek related, you know? But we understand you're a busy guy. I mean, not only are you a time traveler and Marty McFly, but you're also a captain of a starship. You just got a full plate.
I'm not complaining. Good problems to have, you know.
And don't even ask how long he spends on his hair.
Not as long as you might think, and that's kind of the point.
Oh. Okay.
No, it's supposed to, but I'm glad you said that. It's supposed to look like it took a long time to do this, but yeah.
It looks awesome. Your hair always looks awesome.
It does, though.
Yeah.
So one of the
The
questions
little hair
in the
I have
comments,
left does not look awesome, just so you know. It's all I got.
one of the questions in the comments was from Daniel Vance. He says, "Who is messing with?" Earlier, Josh was saying who people were messing with Tyler, and Daniel Vance says, "Who is messing with Tyler? Just give me their names. Nobody messes with the Dunivan."
I did see that. Thank you, Daniel. Those things are water under the bridge, you know. So, and we don't talk about people publicly, you know, who have.
But I just wanted to show you the love that.
Just deal with it. We move on.
Yeah, but the love that the community has for you, especially me. I am a Captain Mason Mark. I love, I think he's one of the best captains Starfleet has ever produced. Period. Wow. Like in canon. And because you've got this like, and I've said, you've got this like Kirk swag, but yet this Picard stoicism, and it's just it really works. And then you grew the beard, and I'm like, game over, man. I just love this guy so much. So
yeah,
I believe Mage had a question for you first.
Sure.
We'll start off with, well, how does it feel, man? Like, congratulations, and how does it feel?
So many, it's kind of a whirlwind of different feelings. First of all, I'm overwhelmed. I'm blown away. And I'm full of gratitude for the all the showrunners who voted. I am kind of speechless. And at the same time, I remember 2 years ago getting the captain level Best Actor award, and the Admiral went to Warren Hawk. And this year, I actually wouldn't have been upset if Warren Hawk won Best Actor again, and I was second to that because I could say, even though my name isn't on it, but Josh and I won Best Direction for Crisis because I co-directed Crisis. So if Warren won first place, I could say, yeah, I directed that. but in all seriousness, yes, Warren Hawk is a wonderful actor, and so many other wonderful actors in fan films, not just Star Trek fan films in general. And I have so much respect and love for everyone out there making fan films. For anyone who loves a fandom so much that they will put the time, effort, and money into money in some cases into that much effort and time out of their personal life into making a film, about something that they love watching. So, so much respect to anybody doing that. And there are so many fan films that I enjoy and fan film franchises that I enjoy watching. So I can't mention I can't think of everybody But Gary Davis and Randy Wren, the Dreadnought Dominion guys, Frank Parker, and Vance, and just everybody. I got to meet Jose Cepeda recently, he goes by Joe. But a really nice guy. I got to go to his house. He had a big set. I just love this community so much. So to me, it's it's a little bit. To me, it's not a contest. It's not about my film's better than your film or my performance was better than that other actor's performance. It's not about that to me or to us at all. I am, however, very, very, very grateful for the recognition, and it's a great feeling. And I thank all of the voting showrunners from the bottom of my heart. It's wow, what an honor.
Well, and it is from the your peers in the fan film community. It's not just a popularity poll. It's not it is people who are in the brick and mortar of this community that were voting for these things. So that speaks volumes, because all these fan film creators work with all these different fan film actors that are captains. They act with all of these people that are actors or aspiring actors, and you could be working next to one week you could be working next to one of the next big actors, and the next week Tyler Dunivan could be in the next big MCU project. You never know, so that's one of the great things that I like seeing. And the Star Trek fan film community is so very gracious, because I always go back to the story of when we first were introduced into this community, when after our review of Menard 2 and how we got, that is a storied saga right there. And but as I've always said, is that the grace and the understanding of the community is there are people who, rightfully so, there are people out there who are like, no, let's torch this channel. Who are these a-holes? And then there's other people that are like, no, let's hear them out. Let's maybe teach them the error of their ways and work with them and show them there's a better way of going about these things sometimes, most times. And
ironically, ironically, I was one of I was supposed to be one of the dogs, because I used to, just in the early days of Avalon, like Ghost Ship, when we would get trolls, unnecessarily rude comments that didn't even have bearing on reality, some of them, I would just say something really nasty right back to them publicly and not care. And I learned better than that, I've learned better etiquette as as an actor and a public figure and all that kind of stuff. So I actually like it when people, make whatever comments, honesty, even if it's nasty or whatever. And if somebody is being rude, for just for no reason, our other fans are going to eat them alive. So I don't have to say anything to anybody, but no, I do encourage feedback. If somebody wants to say, hey, I would, don't like this about the film or whatever. Well, okay. Well, we try to take those things into consideration. But anyway.
Yeah, but it is a very interesting community, because you look at other fandoms, I'll just throw one out there that just randomly comes to mind, like Star Wars, where they will, I'm not just talking about now fan film communities, I'm just talking about in general. You see how fandoms like that will just utterly destroy a franchise because it's not what they want it to be. Whereas in Star Trek, more often than not, they're trying to uplift everybody. And yes, you do have your people that, your Kurtzman haters, your people who say, when did Trek get woke? And it's like, you just gotta kind of take those people in strides. But it seems like overall,
1966, September 8th.
Yeah, right.
The pilot.
Yeah, the pilot. There was a woman on the bridge. Oh, very, very bad back then, apparently. But Star Trek was willing to do it, or at least try it. Go ahead.
May I? Sorry, I remembered the thought that I was trying to get out. The story how when we first met, Josh tried to sick me on you guys. He wanted me to go tell you guys not nice things. He wanted me to go cuss you guys out, basically, and because I've been known to do that before in the past. And instead, what I watched, I watched a review of Demons. I hate that film, and you guys just trashed it and ripped it apart. And I was like, yes, I agree with you. Hey, let's talk about it. Hey, guys, so maybe you should watch Ghost Ship. And you guys were like, you know, like, okay, we'll do that, you know.
And we did, and that is one of our favorite fan films of all time, honestly. You know, so, Mage, I think it's your turn for a question, or if Jonathan, you want to add anything.
Well, I mean, my feeling about Tyler is just that his involvement in the fan film community is just amazing. You know, he, first of all, like Josh, he's willing to help out other fan films. You know, it's not just like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, work with my own little fiefdom. You know, he's directed, you know, he's helped with actors, and you know, he's taken long road trips, and I'm sure, you know, you've carried lights around, you know, sets and all the, you know, the physical stuff you have to do. And you know, the thing is that there are some people in the fan film community who really embrace fan films, and, you know, some who have lives, and I'll leave it at that. But, you know, I was interviewing folks recently. Most of them had, I said, so, you know, do you have any favorite fan films? And like, well, I really don't watch any of the ones other than the ones I'm in. Like, well, that's okay. You know, I mean, you know, there's no police, you know, they're saying you must watch.
Right.
But, you know, there are certain people who really do embrace the community, the collaboration of it. And which is really amazing. I mean, I remember back in the old days when fan films first started up, and very seldom were there any. The concept of a fan film crossover was very unusual. I mean, you had maybe Intrepid and Hidden Frontier. That was basically it in terms of cross pollination, and even that was, you know, very difficult to do and very few and far between. And now it's happening all the time. You know, you'll see you know, Joe Cepeda's character, you know, in an Avalon thing. You'll see Vance showing up, you know, as Menard, and it's really wonderful, and people are helping people. I know that, you know, Josh is always overwhelming his visual effects people, you know, which is Sam Cockings right now and Keith Hamilton.
Both wizards.
Both
amazing
wizards.
guys. And I did see the comment that Keith made earlier. Thank you so much. You, sir, are an artistic genius. So you and Sam both, Keith and Sam are just amazing guys.
But anyway, what Josh did rather recently is the offer from the folks at Lauralee to help him out. So these folks in Germany who are on a completely different fan series, and they're busy doing their stuff, and their stuff is amazing. They're like, oh no, we can help you with that. And it's like, oh, it's just so wonderful. It's so heartwarming to see this wonderful collaboration happening on all different levels, and so many, you know, different, and they're all great people. I mean, that's the other thing, is that, you know, these are very nice people. They're very helpful people. They're, you know, there are a few egos out there, and I think we all, you know who they are. But really, I'd say not you, Cheeto.
Guilty, you know.
Yeah, no, you're nicer than egotistical. But no, I mean, you know, just people who are, you know, let me help, you know, that wonderful thing from Star Trek. And you know, they're fun. They're fun to be with. They're nice. They're considerate, and always supportive of each other. You know, that's the best thing of all. You know, Josh could easily tear apart infinite numbers of fan films, you know, because he knows how to make a fan film. He knows how to do this. You know, obviously you didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. He never does that. He never does that because he understands how difficult it is just to do what people did. What other people criticize is so much more difficult than anything the people who are doing the criticism could ever do themselves anyway. You know, so, you know, for me, that's just, and there's so many people like that in the fan film community who are just, you know, supportive of each other, which is what the Showrunner Awards are all about. You know, it's just, we're just getting together once a year to celebrate each other, and hey, you know, maybe you didn't win, but you made that fan film great, and you got this award. And you know, I mean, Steve Harris, for example, you know, Task Force 78, I honestly, I wasn't expecting that one to win anything. And nothing personal, Steve, or whatever, but just there were certain, major, significant fan films, and then there's certain ones, that people are trying really hard and they're giving it their best effort, but they just don't have the resources and such.
Yeah.
But
and Josh and I, like I said, Josh and I have, jumped at the opportunity to help other productions when they ask us to.
Which is great too.
I know why they did, because they had the illustrious Major Rage in their cast list.
Well, the thing, yeah, you snuck in there, but no, I mean the thing was Task Force 78 won for best micro budget fan film, which is the whole reason we created that category in the first place. Is that you have to have a budget of $1,000 or less for everything, including the pizza, and there's a whole bunch of fan films that are never going to be able to compete with the Crisis and the Farragut Forwards and the, Star Trek Continues and the Axonars and whatever else. So we give them their own category to compete in. And a lot of fan films that wouldn't have won anything otherwise, at least have the chance of winning best micro budget.
Yeah. I like that.
So anyway, but yeah, just, the support, the love. I mean, it's a great community. I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Well, Jonathan, I want to say thank you for creating this in the first place, and I love I really like the way that it's structured, and that that you've got 3 awards for every category, or 3 tiers for every award, for more recognition. Because if you just say, oh well, that person's the best actor, and this person wins best female actress, this person wins best director, well, maybe there are other directors that are still really great and deserve some recognition, and so I like that that you have an admiral, captain, and commander level awards. So thank you for doing that.
Well, you're very welcome. I'll tell you, you're asking about the origin of the Showrunner Awards. One of the things I didn't mention was the year before the Showrunner Awards started off. There was a BJO Awards where the film Line of Duty, which was from Aaron Vanderklee in Australia, won, I think, like 14 out of 16 awards. And there were a couple of runners up or whatever, but it was just like everything went to Line of Duty, which was a great fan film. But, that year we're like, really, we sort of felt like nobody else got any recognition that year. And so the first thing I said is, like, how can we make sure that there's more winners? And the first thing I thought is, let's have 3 levels on each, and not a winner and a runner up. I didn't want to have like everything's all about the winner and the runner up. It's like, no, everybody's going to get a certificate. They're all going to look alike. Obviously the admirals are going to have more admiral heads on it. And, captains has 4 captains on it and 3 for, dots for the commanders. But that was the whole idea is like, let's have as many winners as possible, which was one of the reasons why in the first year we had a whole bunch of ties. We had a bunch of 2-way ties. We had a bunch of 3-way ties. And I talked to the judges. I said, should we have a tiebreaker of something? Or you guys want to vote again or whatever? Or, I said, honestly, I think it's the more the merrier. I think let's just give out more awards. And they were all like, yeah, sounds great. So that's what we do.
No, I love it, and I really appreciate the recognition from being great to be a part of this community as well. And just because I get embarrassed when Cheeto points out things like that doesn't mean that I'm trying to be ingracious about it. I really did.
Not only are you a Golden Glasses award-winning host of the year, now you are also a showrunner, fan film showrunner award-winning. So.
Hey. You got my salute right here.
Yeah,
I'm in great company.
That's right. Yeah, Tyler, just out of curiosity, walk us when you did Josh call you, or did you receive an email when you got the Best Actor award? Walk us through what happened there, what your feeling was and everything like that when you got. When you realized you got the admiralcy in the Best Actor category.
So I had I think I was in the shower at the time. I got out of the shower and I had a missed I had a missed call from my agent and a text from my publicist, and they were both like, "Holy crap, Tyler!" I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't have either one of those things.
I was about to say, I'm like, wow, Josh does wear many hats.
No, Josh texted me the award, a picture of the award, and I was like, at first I thought it was a joke. I thought he made it up. I thought he just did,
Well, that's kind of mean.
Some, Mario paintbrush or whatever, and and just made it. I was like, "Did you make this, or is this like for real?" And he was like, "No, no, this happened." And I was like, "Okay, what?"
I went back and I watched Knights of the Void today because it just had been a while since I seen it, because I watched it when it first came out, because we did our live watch along and we interviewed afterwards, and it just had been a while since I watched, and I went back and I'm like, no, this is a well-deserved award here. Knights of the Void is just a good, I don't want to say Star Trek drama, because I don't want to say it's drama, but there's enough drama there where it takes itself seriously. So with Ghost Ship, it's like Ghost Ship was self-referential enough that it was goofy, and yet it was it took itself seriously. But with this one, with Knights of the Void, it took itself very seriously, but at the same time, it wasn't like a slog like some other fan films that have that mindset. I'm not going to name any names to have that though. So,
I know what you're talking about.
But so that's why I said no, and as I said, not that I didn't believe it, but I'm just like, okay, before we do this interview, I want to go watch Knights of the Void again. I watched Crisis, so even though we watched Crisis not too long ago, I wanted to watch Crisis again, and then I wanted to watch the third one. Why am I drawing a blank on its name?
Lost Starship.
I wanted to watch that one again, which I realized I had actually only seen about half of that one, and then I got interrupted and I never went back to it, because when I went to it, the red bar was like right in the middle, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even finish this one. Like, not that I left, I think I was watching it and the kids were there. I think I remember it, but it was, a while back. But so after rewatching, I'm like, these are three really good fan film performances from everybody, as I said earlier, all three of these fan films took a lot of awards, and it's well deserved. So, I mean, especially Crisis is and I know you co-directed that, so you had a hand in a lot of that, because you kind of took a back seat in the acting department in that one, but you were there in the director, helping Josh with everything,
So when I co-direct, it's usually I direct specifically the actors and specifically the acting performances. I conduct rehearsals on set, on the day and before. I basically, that's my part. That's my contribution. Because Josh is focusing on literally everything else. All of the technical aspects. When he does a shot, he's making sure the audio is good. His main thing, he's making sure that the camera is in focus, and then that it moves the way he wants it to and catches what he wants. So a lot of times we'll have to start up, the actor will nail a take and just say up, cut, back to one. Sorry, that was my fault. Performance was fine. Keep doing that. But he's got so many other things to worry about that, it helps to have another director to work, hands-on with the actors.
And it does feel like with obviously your speciality, which is acting, you can, and not saying that Josh can't, but I'm just saying Josh has got an editor's brain. He's got a producer's brain. Right. He is thinking post-production and everything like that. Whereas you're right there in the moment and you're like, hey, when you're doing this scene, how about we try to go about it this way, or maybe change your mindset a little bit to this way when you're saying this, to kind of give it that different twist. And that's why I think it's good. And it really shows in Crisis, because when I first watched Crisis, live, I didn't know you co-directed until I saw it later on. So it was and I'm like, this makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of decisions that were made in there that I could tell that somebody was definitely, an actor was, coaching.
Example. putting you on a spot here. What's an example of that?
Oh God. So what scene was it? There was one scene. I'd have to go back and look at it. There was the one scene that was between, and I'm terrible with names. I'll find it and I'll tell you. Hold on.
I'll give you one where I know Tyler was involved.
Okay.
When the evil Allenby is on the bridge of the mirror Excalibur at the very, very end, and she's delivering the line that's basically eviscerating everybody else because she believes that she's the best, and they're all kind of worthless. And I knew exactly where that came from.
Oh, you mean the writing?
The writing, or
That-
no, not just the writing, but the delivery of the line,
The inflection?
the inflection. Was
That-
there any of you?
No, that came
that
from
was-
Josh because he
that
wrote
came
it.
from Josh.
Yeah,
Well, he wrote it, but her delivery,
because it's
that was
something
the delivery.
it's something that a real person said in real life.
That's true. It's true. But
That's
the
what I'm
delivery
saying.
of it. But just in the delivery of it, I don't know. Was that just all Alex doing it? Because honestly, when
That
Alex
was
did
Josh
that,
directing Alex.
okay,
that
it was
wasn't
Josh
me.
directing. Okay,
Because
that wasn't you.
Josh
That was
was-
Josh.
yeah,
Yeah, because
that-
I could hear the original delivery of that line in my head when she delivered it. I was just like, oh my god, post-traumatic stress.
yeah.
But
And we don't bash people. We don't talk about people, and we hold no ill will against anyone. So
no, we hold
again, that stuff's water under the bridge. But
But
yeah.
But I will say that there were some amazing performances in Crisis, and not least of which was Alex Rexford, who I believe won for Best Actress, and rightly so. I mean, she was playing 3 or 4 different characters that were all the same character.
Like 7.
That was the scene that I was really impressed with when I was going back and I'm like, the one where the 3 Allenbys are sitting there and talking and having to, like, I thought you had some involvement in at least some of those scenes where they're like interacting with each other but not actually there.
Yeah. I'm Josh is behind the camera, and I'm giving her notes between takes and
it's just that's a hard thing to do, and I as I said, it takes a lot of coaching and a lot, like, but I could tell that there, it just seemed like there was purpose in the different, like, personalities of each of the different Allenbys, and it just struck me as like somebody had to coach her, not that she couldn't do it on her own, but like, kind of to wrangle those 3 personalities and make them distinct enough so that they were different.
You know what? I'll say on set that was her, man. Okay. I don't know what Josh had already said to her before, but on the day on set, I didn't have to, neither of us, neither Josh nor myself, had to explain to her who these characters were or the differences between them. I think that he had explained it to her before, in advance, and she nailed the characters. She knew who each character was and what their differences were. The only thing I did was she got a little bit of. There were a couple of times that the weight of it started to get to her, which would have gotten to a lesser person much sooner, because she had a lot of dialogue. She had a lot of dialogue, and all I did was a couple of times we just clear the room. Okay, let's go over these lines, take a breath, and then she's got it. So Alex, my hat is still off to her big time. She did an amazing job, and every bit deserving of the Admiral Best Actress award for sure. When I first saw him, I was about to get upset because for a split second I just saw Best Actor Tyler Dunivan. I was like, no, that should say Alex Rexford. And then I was like, oh, there's a male and female category. Okay, cool. I'm like, good, she did win. All right, because I would not have liked that.
I mean, she really did knock it out of the park. I mean, as I said, she did a really great job with 3 different. She had more. She probably had more characters than a Martin Lawrence movie, like
Yeah.
Tyler Perry movie,
Yeah.
like so. Mage, you got anything for Tyler?
Yes, sir. What do you prescribe to any like particular like school of acting? Like, what is your methodology?
Oh boy. Oh boy. You're gonna give away all my secrets.
I need them. I need them to improve my
Oh
performance.
gosh. Most of I've let's see. Well, first of all, experience. I played the lead role in all the like elementary school plays, when I was a kid, and then I did some. Well, also played the lead role in every Shakespeare play I did in high school. I played Romeo, Macbeth. Anyway, and then when I was in 10th grade, when I was 16, I got a job, and like the drama department had this thing where they hated kids with jobs, or they didn't, they're like, yeah, you got a job, bye, we're not going to cast you in the musical. It was a rule, it was a policy. So I just I got out of acting for a long time, and went back to it when I was 31. I did a son that my brother had auditioned for a local community theater production of Hello Dolly, and I was like, well, I can't let my brother upstage me. If my brother's getting back into acting, I got to do it too. So he and I were actually cast as Barnaby and Cornelius, which worked because our dynamic just, um, I've taken a couple of like little classes here, just somebody teaching a class. Hey, I'm teaching an acting class for 6 weeks or whatever. I've done little things like that. I do not have a degree in theater or drama or any of that kind of thing. My acting is pretty much just my own intuition. Self-taught, I guess you could say. I mean, there is a lot of great information, a lot of helpful things in college curriculum, places that teach acting and teach theater and drama and those sort of things. I'm not downplaying I'm not downplaying that education at all. And I respect people who get that education and have that knowledge. I've never been able to wrap my head around the concept of method acting. I say never. Generally, most of my life I have not. There have been a couple of times recently that I'd say in the past year or two that I've had to do that, had to draw on actual emotion. The first time was in Cosmic Strain. And when we're talking method acting, Stanislavski, Meisner, so in Cosmic Stream. So prior to Cosmic Stream, I had turned down roles before. Actually, that there was one a guy wanted to cast me in a gangster movie, and he wanted me to be like some underboss or somebody that some business guy that the bad guys were coming after and making an example of or whatever. And the gangsters have him like tied to a chair, and they like kill his bodyguard, and then they're going to
Sounds like
kill
a
him.
Tough to Kill ripoff. Is what it sounds like.
Well, but I had to play a character who I had to cry. I was going to have to cry to play this character. I had to play a guy who knows he's about to die and is crying for his life, is sobbing, and I'm like, I don't think I can recreate that. I not with confidence. And I told the director, I was like, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm going to have to bow out because I don't want to make myself look bad as an actor, and I don't want to make you look bad as a director, or your film look bad. And I'm afraid that it would, because I'm not confident that I could deliver the performance that you need. Cosmic Stream was the first time that I actually drew on actual emotion to because Mason is looking at his wife laying there and she's lost the baby, and there's nothing he can do to help her, and he feels he hurts for her. He hurts for the loss of their child, and there's nothing he can do about it. He just feels absolutely helpless. And I had to draw on real life feelings to show Mason feeling that way. and I didn't cry. I think my eyes just welled up with tears. But I thought of certain memories, certain things, and actually felt that emotion in that moment on camera. So sometimes do what you got to do.
Powerful scene.
Sorry,
But
I heard it.
Sorry, what?
Okay, we had an echo there for a minute, but I don't know. It's gone now.
it sorted itself.
Yep, sorted itself out.
Okay.
Gito,
All right.
do you have anything
you guys have
else
any?
for Tyler?
Oh,
I got nothing.
Well, again, Jonathan, thank you so much. Jonathan, thank you so much for creating these awards in the first place. It's a really great way for us as a community, all the fan film people to come together and celebrate each other, not just ourselves. So thank you again for making the awards, and for any of the showrunners seeing this or might see this, thank you so much. That's all I can say.
it's well earned. I mean, as I said, when I went back and watched it, when I went back and watched Knights of the Void today, I was like, yeah, like this is very well earned. Not that I doubted it, but I'm just like, I just wanted to remind myself before we came in here, the performances and that's why I was watching those 3 films, because I was like, I want to see these performances,
Right.
And I want to see just have it fresh in my mind. So
yeah, as you do. Interesting thing, which surprises me still a little bit, is that Knights. I think Knights is a great film. It's not Crisis, it is what it is, but it's not Crisis, and it's not the Lost Starship.
But I really feel like Crisis and Knights are 2 different animals as well.
Yeah.
Watching them back to back today again was as I said, Crisis is very self-aware and self-parodying almost. It's almost like kind of like an episode of Lower Decks. You know what I mean? I love Lower Decks. And as I said, but then Knights of the Void is something completely different, and it's it's great. And that's why I was like, the performances in there were on par. The writing or not on par. They were good. The writing was good. The performances were good. I was sucked in from, the very beginning, even though I knew what was going to happen in it from when we watched it before. I was still like, I really, really enjoy these characters. It's like going back and binging an old TV show that you just love the characters in. I stand for, there's tons of fan films out there, and I'm not saying any of them are not as good or, but the Avalon universe is something that I feel like I can truly envelop myself in with these characters. And I know these characters, we've been on the journey with them.
Yeah. Been watching them for a few years. But what I meant was, what I was saying is that it surprised me that, my award for, Best Actor award was for my performance in Knights, which was, one of the lesser, it's not the one that swept all the awards like Crisis.
Well, in Crisis, wow. you were just playing Presley, which, by the way, you played amazing.
I was about to say that's like one of my favorite characters in that movie, in that fan film. Presley was.
Who needs a hound dog? Yeah, but
that times comic relief.
Yeah. There's a new category right there. Is best parody performance of just anything,
I was looking up some of the songs. There were a couple of the songs that I wasn't familiar with. And I'm there in costume on set, and I'm looking up on YouTube, listening to these things. And Josh is like, "Tyler, you ready?" And I'm like, "I got to get the tune,"
Yeah, at least you got some Elvis in you.
Oh, that was fun to do. You said I was just Presley in Crisis. I was also Cowboy Back to the Future 3 costume, Mason, or whatever.
You get to play opposite yourself, literally. But no, at some point I will manage to crowdfund fund the Avalon musical that
the Avalon musical, yes,
and that is where Tyler
sing and dance.
all you got to make sure you have is K-pop Klingons in it. You just got to make sure you got that in there.
No K-pop Klingons. We've got Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix as Romulans, though.
Oh, okay.
I'll take that. I was going to say, hey, don't hate on K-pop. I listen to K-pop.
Nothing wrong with K-pop, but if you got Romulans, you got Commander Bob and Commander Jimmy.
Awesome.
Well, excellent.
Go ahead, Mage.
Do you have anything else, Cheeto?
No, I was just going to see is Neil wanting to come in and answer a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Well,
Neil, who has been waiting so patiently in the background, in the green room.
Hey, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Here's Neil.
Thank you for joining us, Tyler.
Director of Photography. Neil Bilby, Director of Photography of Crisis.
Yep.
So, congratulations to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
How are you doing this evening?
Oh, it's been a day. So, we're getting there.
Thank you for staying up late and being here with us. I'm sure I appreciate it, and I'm sure the audience appreciates it as well. Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. A lot to talk about there. What were your overall thoughts of the process of filming such an ambitious project and directing the photography?
I think that it helped that, as we've looked at it earlier, we started out with Ghost Ship, which, as you guys have said, is a very self-referential movie, and had a lot of fun with it. And then we sort of went through, as Josh would call it, the dying and crying era. And then we get back to, some more serious to get us back onto our feet. And now we're back into something that is, for all intents and purposes, it does move the story forward a little bit, but it's doing it all in a very humorous way. So, and balancing it between the different eras. We had some stuff that looked like it was original series. Then we had some stuff that was kind of Avalon. Then we had some stuff that was completely off the rails. So trying to balance that all, and we shot this at the same time. It was a little bit of Nights and a little bit of what we got coming up. So it was quite a challenge to keep it all together and trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time, and we don't wind up crossing wires or something wacky like that.
Yeah, to keep those different projects compartmentalized.
And the looks compartmentalized as well. That's a fun part of that. So
that was going to be one of my questions, is when you're approaching the Avalon projects, when you sat down to do Crisis, do you have a clear-cut look for an Avalon film? It like set up like I'm not a good photography, I'm not one for like camera angles and stuff, but like the little nuances that you put into those like principal photography and stuff and camera work and stuff like that. Do you have any of those like little nuances for Avalon that distinguishes it from other films or even from other Avalon films that I don't know have you worked on all the Avalon films or just some?
A majority.
So like if there was like an Avalon film you didn't work on, like would you be like, oh yeah, I would, they didn't do the thing that I do right here,
Not as much, because I don't really want it to look like I've had my thumbprint on it. I want them all to flow naturally together. Avalon is how we differentiate that. And Josh says this a lot, that when they do the original series, classic Star Trek, that is film noir in color. Because they originally wanted to light it like film noir, so it was all very heavy shadows and angular lighting and things like that. But CBS, because color TV was a big thing back then, that's why we had the yellow and the red and the blue uniforms, and and all those different colors to sort of stand out and say, hey, look, we have color TV and look how bright it is, kind of a situation. And they could sell TVs that way. And they did that a lot with tungsten fixtures. So that has a very distinct look. Then for Avalon, we
we primarily light it with LED light fixtures and color changing fixtures like the lamp behind me. We can sit there and we can dial in what colors we want. We tend to make it a little softer and a little even across the face, but sometimes we'll give it contrast. Cosmic Stream is a good example of that, where we did a lot of that with LED fixtures. And because we wanted to make the ship look like it was abandoned, we brought the light level down a lot, but we had strong backlight, so it would stand out from the background. That's something I tend to do, is either I will use color or I will use lighting intensity to try and pull the people and create depth and dimension on what is a two-dimensional medium. So, little things like that, little tricks that we've picked up over the years if we've done this for a long while, and not just in the Star Trek fan film world, but amongst other projects as well. So,
Gotcha.
So, did that?
Very nice. Oh,
that answered?
I've answered it and more.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, excellent. Mr. Lane, do you have anything that you'd like to ask Mr. Bilby?
Well, I have an appreciation for camera and lighting and all that sort of stuff, just because of my experiences with Josh on Interlude, as he explained painting with light.
Yes.
And I know that in Interlude, one of the challenges that we had, not a fun challenge, was to take the same Ares bridge set and turn that into both the USS Ares as well as the USS Artemis. And there were a number of little tricks that Josh did. For example, all of the shots of Jaconde were taken from the bottom right of the screen pointing towards the left, whereas all the shots of Alec on the Ares camera was placed, to screen left, pointing back towards the turbo lift. And then obviously the lighting was different. So you had some of those same challenges for Crisis, because you had to create the mirror universe, you had to create the Prime universe.
Did you guys do the Kelvin? I know that Kelvin Enterprise was, I believe, there, or not, that the Kelvin Excalibur was there, but
that was a green screen.
That was a green screen. Okay,
that was a green screen.
And we also did the Orville as a green screen. And I remember pulling the plate for that because I have the Orville fan experience on my computer. And I was able to pull the background plate for Josh because he wanted the New Horizons version. I think that came off of season 3. Some little minor tweaks to the set were performed. So I did that for him. But to your point, Jonathan, a lot of things can be done in not only the direction that the camera is, but also the screen space that the actor occupies. And large times we refer to that as like strong side, weak side. So in the Western hemisphere, in the Western tradition, we tend to read top to bottom, left to right. And, and you go to like Japanese and other things like that, they tend to read top to bottom and I think right to left. So it's a little bit reversed. So we look at the screen comp differently, and somebody who can be on, the strong side over here tends to be a little more dominant in the frame. That's why you put them there, and they tend to be a little taller. If you want someone to be a little weaker, you put them in the lower left-hand side. Just not to say it, but has that psychological, underpinning to it. And we immediately can look at that and realize those things. And another cheat we do is, depending upon the set, we can light the set differently. And if we shoot it from a different angle, it's shocking just how quickly our brains will sort of forget that, we're looking at Luon instead of a starship, plywood, instead of 24th century materials. And then we sort of realize, like, okay, we believe somehow our brains trick us into believing that that's a separate place, a separate time, a separate space, and all the other fun stuff that you can get away with, as little tricks and little things that we have in our bag that we'll pull out every so often to try and pull off. There's a lot of times, like you said, the Ares bridge had to double for 3 ships. We only had one bridge that we can shoot on, and they're all the same shape and all the same design. So how do we make it look like different starships, even though it's the same physical space? And a lot of Star Trek does that a lot. Next Generation got away with a lot of it by redressing the battle bridge to be other different things. They would change a few arrangements, they'd turn it, so you wouldn't be facing one particular direction. They just rotate it a little bit. So the captain's chair would rotate and you'd be shooting it in a different way. And it looks different to the eye because all we see is what is here within this frame. And what goes on beyond the frame is another fun little thing that you can play with if you want to. A lot of comedic directors tend to use the outside the frame as sort of a way of just fooling the audience and having a laugh at that, so to speak.
What? Oh. Was that an echo or was that me?
I think there was an echo of you.
It was an echo. Okay. I thought somebody else was going to say something. So, what is your favorite, like, if you were to be able to work with any Starship set, what one would you want to work with? Like, what if you could work with any Star Trek, like either set piece or even bridge, if you want to narrow it down to just bridge set, which one would you want to work with the most?
Well, I grew up in Oregon, and I remember looking at a box of Kix cereal, and they had promoing Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I was familiar with the original series. I've seen a couple episodes, but I grew up with Next Gen, so I am biased towards that. I do kind of like, even though I don't think it's particularly appropriate, the current, like, for example, the Strange New Worlds Enterprise set looks like a luxury hotel in Dubai. And I think it looks stunningly beautiful. But is it really appropriate for the show? I don't know. They all have their strengths. And I would really love to see DS9 remastered in HD and really see what that looks like. Especially their ops center. But
I was just gonna say, are you talking ops or the Defiant bridge? Because I actually would love to work on the Defiant bridge. I would. I love that close quarters feel, even kind of like the NX-01 bridge. That's kind of where I like those, like, close quarters. Like, it's not like hats off to Next Gen, but like like I always thought of a luxury hotel or like a cruise liner bridge, and I'm like, I'm just waiting for the big steering wheel. Worf back there with the steering wheel, even though he's not the navigator. But
we had that on Star Trek V. The lounge had the big steering wheel in it and the navigational stuff, very nautical. But I see what you're saying. Sometimes things can be too big, and sometimes you're kind of, how to put it, you're a little too spoiled for space. So it becomes very hard to, I've experienced something, not through Avalon, but through my regular 9-to-5 job, is when you give people too much choice. Suddenly they start tripping over themselves, like, well, I've got this, so maybe I have to use it. And, but we got this space, and they can't make a decision, and it becomes this wishy-washy mess. There is something to be said for having a smaller space that constrains you into these shots, and it forces you to say, okay, we can only shoot in this direction because I can't ram this big old Panavision camera package into this corner without cutting a monstrous hole in the set. And then we have to go and patch it again if we do that. So there is something to be said for that. I think, to your point, Next Gen was very flat in its lighting, largely because of the technology they had at the time, and the total contrast that the TV systems could handle. Like right now, our monitors can handle a greater range of contrast than the old CRT monitors could back in the day. And I know my camera can record greater saturation than NTSC could back in the day. In fact, your red shirt would probably have bled, Cheeto, so badly on cable, it would have looked horrific. But, technology changes and time changes. We did get sort of a look at how the bridge of the Enterprise D would look with LED lights in Star Trek Picard Season 3. I think, some of it looked good, but I think there are some definite, critiques I have of the lighting for that. You looked at it and you went, ugh, boy, somebody had a really big source of light and they really liked it, kind of a situation.
But I think also they were trying to blend some of the newer Trek lighting with, with the Enterprise D, like old like look, and it just, to me, that actually really stood out to me when they were on the bridge in that last episode of Picard. I'm like, it just seems off, and I knew what it was. I'm like, it seems like they're trying to like not make it too bright and not make it, so, but yet in the original TNG, it was bright, like
Yes.
It was very bright, and one of the things that happened with TNG is that came from above. That was a decision made by executive producers like Roddenberry and Berman. And if you watch the extras on the Blu-ray set for yesterday's Enterprise, the DP on that was talking about how it was so liberating to finally be able to light the entire sets, all of them, especially the bridge, so dark, to actually be able to contours of faces with shadows and whatever.
Oh yeah,
they always wanted that, and of course, that ultimately they ended up being able to do that with Star Trek Generations, the movie. They also did it more darkly, but it didn't match what we had seen for 7 years on TNG because it wasn't overlit.
Yeah. Well, yesterday's Enterprise.
And I'll tell you one more quick thing. I actually. Yeah, well, yesterday's Enterprise just it had to look different. It had to look like the war, reality and what have you. But I'll tell you, not that I'm a DP or anything, but in terms of sets, the DS9 sets and the Voyager sets were just stunning, and I can say this having actually been on both of those, especially the Promenade. The Promenade really was 2 floors. And it was so huge, and there was so much you could do with it from so many different angles. And of course, they used all those angles. Ops as well. Ops wasn't really 2 floors, but it was sort of like a duplex, because you had Cisco's office was sort of a half level above everything else, and then what was great is that elevator that came up to the bridge, the Ops Center, the entire Ops Center was built about 5 or 6 feet off the ground, so people could come in at ground level and get onto the elevator, and all the elevator had to do was just lift itself 6 feet.
Nice.
And then you would be coming out. So anytime you ever saw the elevator go down, it would always cut just when you couldn't see the elevator anymore. But those were just some amazing sets. And then the Voyager sets, they were so gorgeous. And I discovered something. Let me see if I have the photo, and if I can show it on the screen.
Well, I know they redressed next gen sets for Voyager, and they did a really good job repainting them.
They definitely use darker tones, because I'm not a huge Voyager fan, like story wise and some of the casting wise. Well, some of the decisions they did with the cast, but
Let's see if you can see this. Okay, here we go.
You
see what this is? You are looking at the back of a panel. In fact, I think I have the front of that panel in this. Yeah. So this.
Wow.
Oh, is this upside down?
I think your virtual background is cutting into it.
Yeah, I should probably take up my virtual background. But let's see if I put it.
But I mean, we can see it. Like, we can see it well enough.
So, yeah. Anyway, this is what's behind it, and this will make Neil feel very interesting. This thing that's spinning, this round plate, is polarized light.
Yes.
And what they had, and what Akuda did, was when he created these. Let's see if I can get a better one. Yeah, here's a better one. When they created these LCARs, certain spots were polarized at different angles, so they just cut the polarized paper. So people who don't know what polarization is, when you see polarized lenses and such, we see about that, is that you're basically shooting light through. Oh, here's a good one. But you're shooting light through what is essentially bars, and if the bars are like this, what you do is you take the light and you only allow wavelengths that are like this to get through, which means that if there's another polarizer beyond that is off by even 1 degree, the light doesn't go through. It literally stops. Only
because
light
of
that goes
quantum mechanics.
exactly. The light only goes through when it's light. So by having that spinning disc, every time the disc matched the light from the light from the L car button, only when that happened did that L car light up, and then the L car didn't light up as soon as it spun somewhere else. So like on the bridge, you actually see the turbo lifts going back and forth through the Voyager cutaway at the back of the bridge, because those spinning things are essentially turning off this turbo lift, turning on this turbo lift, then turning this one off, and then turning this one on, because of the way that the polarizers were going. So anyway, it was a really, really amazing set that did all the work for you in terms of animating all those backgrounds. That, of course, there were always the people behind with the light switches that were flickering the fluorescence. So if you ever see Voyager getting hit and damaged and things are blinking, there's literally somebody standing behind the set with a light switch going like this, on and off and on and off.
Well, things changed a little bit. I mean, the TV station I work at, we built a light grid, and that's all running off of a protocol. It's called DMX, and each light has an address associated with it, and we can control its brightness, the color channels, and things like that. All of that, and we can even program it to do a lot of that. So it's one of those wonderful things now where things have gotten
Modern
so much easier
technology.
than they were. Yeah, 1994.
I mean, LEDs are just amazing. And I was going to say, there was a fan filmmaker recently who it was Leo Tierney, who actually got a big screen, like 87-inch LED television, and proceeded to put his backgrounds on there. So instead of filming against green screen and having to chroma key out, the hair or whatever and getting all that ragged stuff, he actually just filmed them in front of the television. And so he could do whatever he wanted with his background at that point. He could have animations on it. He could light them anyway. He just had to be careful with lens glare. But it's amazing what you can do now that you couldn't do, 20 years ago. And who knows what we're going to be able to do 20 years ago.
Also, to your story there, I watched a video where where the special effects guy had a dude who worked on Star Trek: The Next Generation and a guy who worked on the latest season of Star Trek Picard, and he was talking to them about what they did back then versus what they're doing now. And one of the things they asked the guy who was working on Picard, they said, "Why are you guys still doing blue screen for the captain's viewer?" And the guy says, "Well, we could do it with like an AR and artificial reality kind of a thing where it's literally a display, and we'll have the picture up there and we can see it. And we don't have to paint out anything or worry about reflections." He said, "The problem is the producers don't know what's going to be there when they're filming. So otherwise they'd have to go back and paint it all out again and rotoscope it out and do all that work all over again. So they just still use blue screens a lot of the time." So, and yeah, I know how that's what goes on there is, you're not sure, or there's a script change. We don't really have a whole lot of script changes because our scripts are pretty well written for the Avalon universe by the time we get to shooting, because Josh has already got it written. It's like, okay, cool, we go. Kind of a thing. So
yeah, but in Hollywood, when you've got 8 or 9 days to film an episode, the writers are still writing it going in, and things are getting changed even on day 1 and day 2 that are being filmed on day 3. I can understand. It takes a while to get these things ready as well. The whole concept of pre-production, is getting everything ready. So the idea of creating just a blue screen that allows you to fix that in post-production. There's so much more time in post-production than there ever is in pre-production.
Yeah.
I guess
just really quickly.
Well, there never is enough time in post-production either, is there?
Really quickly before we wrap up, I want to just, we got a couple comments here from a troll named Joshua Irwin. He's just talking about Metallic's, TNG lighting was intrinsic of the 90s. You would, argue that so was the set. You're going to rebuild the set exactly the way it was. I say light it the way it was, and I don't disagree. I mean, just go from the ground up the same if you want the same feel and look. If that's what you're going for, do it that way. I mean, I know you're wanting to like advance it and make it, but at the same time you kind of lose some of that charm when you make things easier, you know what I mean? So unless it's like completely, unless it's completely unavailable to you anymore, that you can't recreate something, I agree. If you're going to build something from that era, then do it, unless you're going to CGI it.
Right. Or if you don't have, in their case, it was extremely budget and extremely time constrained. So they had to do with what they could as quick as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Actor availability. And
to be fair, I mean, and they literally built that set for one episode. Yeah. And I give them credit for going that hard, like that far in on just for one episode. You figure if they do all that, you would want them to at least spend a couple episodes on that bridge, get your money's worth. But more power to them. They saved it for the last, last little bit of the 9th episode and then all of the 10th episode. And they gave the Enterprise D the credence she deserved. And that's why I say sometimes, like, more, sometimes you got those haters of Star Trek right now, but you have to admit we are in a unprecedented time of Star Trek, where the fans have more say in our Trek than we have ever had in the past, in my opinion.
If the current administration will listen, that's the only other side.
But I feel like
they just bought it out. So
they're not going to listen to fans only because there are so many different fans and all fans have their own opinions.
But I still feel from the premiere of Discovery up until now, I think they have listened to the fans quite a bit on what we want. And although they're not giving us exactly what we want, I still feel like they're leaning more and more in the direction of what the fans keep on asking for.
I'm going to say something not quite controversial, but just knowing what I do about the way things work in Hollywood. Not that I work in Hollywood, but I think it's not that they've been listening to the fans, is that they have been open to allowing certain creative people to do what they think is best. So Terry Matalas was allowed to do what Terry wanted to do. And that's what happened. They weren't listening to the fans. They were basically letting a quote unquote fan run it. And that's why Lower Decks is the way it is. That is why Prodigy is the way it is. These were people who, really understood Star Trek, whereas the folks that were making Discovery, with the exception of Brian Fuller, had never worked on Star Trek before. And Brian, of course, was gone after 2 episodes. And one of the reasons Brian was gone after 2 episodes is specifically because so many other people came in and said, no, we're doing it this way. We're doing it this way. We're doing it this way. And like, none of that was what he wanted. So Discovery just went in so many bad directions, whereas, years and years later, it was just that they brought on, creative people who brought on their own creative teams who understood Star Trek. So it wasn't like that saying, we need to bring on, we need to do this because the fans want it. It's like, no, we're bringing in this person, and that person knows what the fans want because he's a fan.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. Really love. Oh, and Tyler's got something.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to. I just wanted to recognize one very overdue award, in my opinion, for an actor. My friend Jason Spriggs finally got the recognition he deserves as an actor by winning the Admiral Supporting Actor Award for Knights. So, I've worked with Jason Spriggs for a long time. He's a great. Been working with him for 6 years. He's a great actor, great guy, high work ethic actor.
Great
so yeah, I was glad to see that. And we have so many others. Leslie Sawyer got I think captain level best supporting for
actress, yeah.
Knights. Anyway, I don't have all of the awards memorized, but so many great people that not in just our films but others. But I did want to point that one out in particular because I think that he's been giving good performances for a long time, and and I'm glad to finally see him get that recognition. So anyway, that's all I got.
No, we want to make sure. I mean, these people deserve the recognition that they are getting because they're doing great things. And it's not, and it's not like you guys are getting paid a lot or paid at all for doing these things. You guys are pouring your heart into these projects, and really it is just for fan enjoyment and fan accolades and stuff like that. And you just the passion
It's
for the
love
product.
and pizza rolls.
It's a labor of love. It is a labor of love.
And these people deserve to be recognized. We could sit here probably all night and recognize everybody who makes these projects a labor of love. And that's the point, is that here on this channel, we sometimes are a little harsh on some films and stuff like that, but we always acknowledge like the passion behind a project, and we always acknowledge the fact that, at least nowadays, I know originally we were a little more harsh, but we acknowledge the fact that people put their, we may not like something, but that doesn't mean it's garbage. That doesn't mean it's trash. That just means it's not for us and we have our issues with it. But that we always acknowledge the fact that labors of love are the kindest form of flattery for any franchise. And Star Trek is the hardest one, because Star Trek makes it the hardest one to do this kind of thing. Paramount and CBS are very, very resistant to fan projects that go outside, like a certain guideline. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they've gotten a little more lenient in the past couple of years, but I mean, there was a lot of fear years ago about these guidelines that came out, after certain incidents. And, but there
were certain productions.
But you know what, Cheeto? I have to, Cheeto, I have to be fair. Sorry to interrupt everybody, but I have to be fair to Paramount and CBS on this. As much as we all hated the guidelines when they came out, only one fan filmmaker was ever contacted saying, "You can't do this." And I don't mean Alec, and the Icarus mover, but what I mean is Sam Cockings, when he put shots of Picard and Riker and Troy and Worf into the trailer for Anomaly, that was a violation of one of the guidelines, and you can't use footage from Star Trek. And they tapped him on the shoulder.
And that is their right, though, too, because those are their characters.
Well, not only that, but honestly, Patrick Stewart never gave his permission for his likeness to be used in a fan film. So there's contractual issues and union issues and all sorts of other stuff. So they contacted Sam and they said, you need to take that out. You can't use Star Trek copyrighted music, and this thing is 52 minutes long. It has to be 30 minutes or less. And Sam was very nice, getting back to them saying, I'll certainly change the music and I will take away those scenes. But honestly, I can't make this thing less than 52 minutes long. It's already been shot. I mean, I shot this back in 2013. This was now 2018. I can't go back and rewrite it. And credit for the folks at Paramount and CBS. And they said, okay, we'll give you permission to we won't do anything if you come out with a 52-minute long fan film. Just don't do it again. Do other things. But since then, CBS and Paramount have not gotten on the case of any fan film or fan filmmaker.
And maybe my inference was not correct, but I know that they haven't really attacked the fan base. I'm just saying the guidelines and everything have kind of made it more difficult to produce things with fear of, will CBS and Paramount come after us if we do this?
They put out guidelines. They just they're not super. They're not enforcing it. Not that we're breaking guidelines or anything, but.
The thing about the guidelines is the guidelines allow people at Paramount to ignore fan films.
Right.
They do not want to deal with us. Just understand that. Mostly because we don't understand the concept of filmmaking. We don't understand lawyers and legalities and stuff like that. So if the fans just stay in their lane, no pun intended, but if they stay in their lane and make their fun little fan films and they don't start to make something for $2 million, that's fine. And then the folks at Paramount can do their jobs that they get paid $100,000 or $150,000 a year to do without having to take $25,000 of that to deal with, fans saying, I don't understand why I can't do this. we can't take the time to explain it to you. You can't do that. So the guidelines just allow Paramount and CBS to just be on autopilot. And I was one of the most aggressively against the guidelines when they first came out. I came up with Project Small Access to protest it, and I am now saying I was wrong because I think the guidelines have been fine. I think the guidelines have helped fan films in a lot of ways to, first of all, not be so long and tedious, because a lot of times we really did indulge ourselves. They force us to trim it down. And yeah, sometimes they go over 30 minutes. I've seen 38-minute, 42-minute, even 48-minute.
45 minutes, crisis.
Exactly.
Crisis.
Exactly.
Crisis, yeah.
But they want to know you're at least making up for it.
48.
Hmm?
I thought it was
Something
45,
around there.
but
They had
I might be
credits
wrong.
and everything.
It's either 42 or 48.
And the only reason that the Icarus maneuver got dinged, to be very honest with you, that was the recent Axanar release. The only reason it got dinged is that they didn't do the obvious, which was to put down the Icarus maneuver, a Star Trek fan production. They left a Star Trek fan production off of it, and they didn't put the legalese at the end. So the two things that were probably the easiest to do in creating a fan film, they did not do. And guess what happened? They got a little knock at the door and say, and a takedown on this.
Yeah.
And I know that Alec was shaking his fist, and you're violating our settlement and blah blah blah. It's like, this was so easy. A Star Trek fan production. It's not like
it is one of the conditions.
Asking you to give away your personal child. And it's there to protect everybody.
Yeah, I think you have to put based on Star Trek created by Gene Roddenberry or based on characters created.
You do not have to.
But
No, it's just it's the legalese at the end. There's one thing that you have to have this little legalese at the end. But the reason that they wanted to say a Star Trek fan production in your title screen is because they do not want confusion in the marketplace. And that's not ridiculous for them to ask for. We don't want somebody to see this and think it's something we produced, even if it might be really, really, really good. In which case, people may think they found free Star Trek, and no, we want you to subscribe to Paramount Plus to watch your Star Trek. So we need to say this is a fan production. And there's some there are some guidelines that are more frustrating than others, that are more onerous, and the fact that you can't hire anybody who's ever worked on Star Trek is problematic. Like, for example, an Absent Friend, which is a fan film I made recently, my friend Mojo created the opening visual effects sequence. Mojo worked on Star Trek, but honestly, I couldn't find anybody else who was going to work for sushi. And I took him out for 2 sushi lunches, and so he worked for free. And I can't control that. So obviously CBS and Paramount never dinged me for it. They might not even notice. But the thing is I really think that the guidelines are a way for fans to just know, okay, I don't have to worry because I followed these. If they try to come after me, I'll say, I did what you told me to do, which should be enough to get them out of any trouble. Whereas, Star Wars and Harry Potter or whatever, any of those franchises could come out of the woodwork and suddenly, sue like they did Axanar, because there are not guidelines for a Star Wars fan film or a Marvel fan film or whatever. And if those lawyers, those sleeping giants ever wake up, then those franchises are going to be in trouble. So in the case of Star Trek, I think, we're in a good position as opposed to a worse position. So that is my soapbox, which I will stop standing on right now. And I will just get back.
Well, and yeah, we're going to wrap up here. As I said, we're approaching the 2-hour mark. But
2
I mean,
hours.
great. Well, so, short attention spans, millennials. Oh, God, what's wrong with them? Anyway. So
millennials, not Gen Z.
The 3 people still watching right now who've been watching the whole time. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah.
I know we've had 43 people watching, so
about 2.5.
Hey, I got a short attention span, and I'm Gen X.
Oh, it's us.
Barely, barely not a millennial.
All right,
like
well, gentlemen,
F
thank you.
at this point.
Thank you very much for joining us here. Major Rage, why don't you take us out, brother?
Excellent. I want to thank everybody who joined us in chat tonight, everybody who just lurked and watched the program. I want to say a very special thank you to Mr. Lane and everybody else who voted for the Showrunner Awards. I want to thank our guests from Avalon, Mr. Tyler Dunivan, Mr. Joshua Irwin, and Mr. Neil Bibble.
Bilby.
Bilby. Bilby. Oops. Sorry, Neil. And most importantly, I want to thank just the audience. Wouldn't be here without you. We've got more than just Star Trek stuff going on NerdTube, so you should definitely subscribe to the channel. You can find Mr. Lane at FanFilmFactor. And you can find .com. You can find Avalon Universe at Avalon Universe here on YouTube. You've been what?
Oh, sorry, just really quick, and also in the description, I did put the link to Fan Film Factor, the awards, the Showrunner Awards page on there, and you can also get to the Fan Film Factor page from there. But I've already linked that in the description, so if you want to go check out Mr. Jonathan Lane's page there, that I'm sure he would appreciate you just taking a gander around and looking. He's got tons of stuff on there. And then after we're done here, I will link the Avalon Universe YouTube page where you can see all of their content, which is, as I've always said, is the best Star Trek fan production for me out there. So I have a lot of love for the Avalon Universe, and it is, as I said, for me, it is my Trek. So not that normal Trek is not my Trek, but it, as fan productions go. Sorry. Anyway, Mage, tell me to shut up.
No, never shut up. Never stop plugging our friends here.
Never shut up. Never surrender.
That's right. That's the new NerdTube motto. But
yeah.
Subscribe, share it out, follow. You've been watching NerdTube, the best social media channel that you've sort of kind of maybe heard of. Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.
Press the button.